Right. So what we have discussed is like story points we have given already. So for the user stories, what is that we have created? So we have given story points as well. So these story points, there are two options as I mentioned earlier. Like story points can be given. This is one way of doing it. If not story points, even we can give some tasks even, right? So tasks can also be created here like this. Now I'm going to explain you the other options in reference to the user stories which was mentioned here. Because if you see user story, whatever the user story we have, normally these user stories we call it as issues. Okay, this is what generally we call normal saying for this user story is called issues, right? ISSUES, right? So we call it as issues. Either it could be in user story or it could be a task or something like. Generally, these we call it as issues. Now, these issues has to be configured because whatever the user stories we have written, these issues has to be configured. Now, if you want to configure these issues and all, here you can see there is an options there, right? So there are different options which are available here. So these options we can use when and wherever it is needed. As of now, we don't require anything of that sort. But here you can see there is an option called configure, where if you want to configure these fields, for example, reporter field is there, labels field is there, assignee field is there. At the same time, you have a field for priority, epic link, right? All these. Now, for example, if you want to configure these fields, means if you want to add something or if you want to edit something and all, here there is an option for configure, which I'll be showing in some time. So before I'm getting into this, so here you can see there is an option called attachment. Okay. These attachment will be used to add some attachments to the existing user story. If this is a user story we have, for example, if there is any kind of reference document we have received, some reference document relating to the particular user story, end user has given to us, some reference information, right? So wherein if you want to put some any kind of attachments in reference to the application itself is concerned, for example, this is the document, let's say as an example. So you can click on it and you can simply add to this, right? So for example, this is the BRD document. Of course, this is a BRD or else templates. Some templates or some screenshots, something like. I'll be showing you. Yeah, for example, this is the document, for example, right? So this is the screenshot, which is something relating to this login page related stuff, right? This is the screenshot. What we can do, simply click on it, open. Now what will happen here? So this screenshot will be updated here, right? So these are the attachments which are relating to the particular user story. What is that we have taken, which is called issue, right? Normally in Agile and Jira terms, we call it as issues. Either it could be a user story, it could be a task, or it could be a subtask, whatever it is, we call it as issues. So what we can do here is this user story, these attachments we have to mention, right? These attachments was mentioned here. This is one thing. Now here you have an option called creating subtask, which was already created here, right? This is what generally subtasks were. Yeah, I already showed you. Next here you can see there is link of web pages. For example, there is if you see link issue. For example, this user story has a link with other issue, right? For some other user story is linking with that, for example, right? So what we can do, you can click on this issue. For example, this user story is linking with some other thing where you can link it. Otherwise, if you want to create any kind of link issues as separate, we can create those as separate as well, right? That is what generally link issue stands for. Now here you can see there is an option called link confluence page. Now one must be knowing about what is confluence and for what reason confluence is being used. Now let us understand confluence is a document collaboration this thing, where if you want to write any kind of documents relating to Jira, relating to Agile and all that, this confluence is being used. So confluence is the one which is directly used as a confluence collaboration tool, right? So we can use documents, whatever it is and all that, right? For example, if you want to write any product requirements or if you want to update anything of that sort, this is being used. So here you have an option called project pages, click on it. Now, if you want to connect to Confluence, because we haven't connected Confluence yet with Jira, now we were connecting to the Confluence for the project, right? Now you have to create a space. You have to create a space as separate. That space called integrated, right? Ours is healthcare integrated practice management, right? This is what generally this was, right? Practice management is what it is. Now I have created a space. Integrated practice management is a space which was created by us, right? The space was created. Now, if you, for example, if you want to write any kind of decisions, for example, some decision in relating to the project was taken, that decision has been updated here. Now, for example, there are some meeting conducted by the team members, like Scrum Master has conducted some meeting. So some meeting today we have conducted, a Scrum Master has conducted today some meeting. In this meeting, they have decided something, right? Some resolutions they have made, some action items they have prepared. So this information should be known to everyone. Maybe this for a particular date, for a particular meeting notes, whatever we have prepared, because this meeting notes is based on the date. You can see here, right? Based on the date, it will be mentioned today, tomorrow, day after, all that stuff, yesterday, all that. So for a particular date, for whatever the meeting notes you want to take it as a reference, that also can be used. Okay. Now, for example, meeting notes I'm writing, or else product requirements. Product requirements means relating to healthcare integrated practice management. Whatever the product requirements, all this can be updated. At the same time, retrospection means sprint retrospection. This is what we call it as. Means, for example, once the sprint is completed, is it according to the way we understood was there or not? To know that generally sprint retrospection is being used here. So these are the options, right? So blank page, designs, meeting notes and all. I'm just creating a meeting notes so that I'll show you as an example to you, right? Meeting notes. I'm selecting. Yeah, here you have to connect. So today is the day. Today you have given the date, right? So date was mentioned here. Now, so list of participants, which I'm writing here, right? We need to write the list of participants. Raj, Ram, Sanjay, Sita, Giri, right? So these are the names I have. These are the participants, for example. Okay. Now, here you need to mention the goal, right? So what goal are we going to do, perform for this particular meeting, right? So goal is to uh, understand how this practice management system is useful for end user. Okay, this is what the goal. Now, at what time, right? For example, at 10 o'clock we have connected, right? So 10 a.m. What was the item? Right? So if you want to add some many colors or cell background, all that stuff, you can add it. This is how cell backgrounds will be. At the same time, if you want to add any kind of columns, if you want to delete columns, rows, right? Everything can be added. So that is common, right? That is nothing to discuss much about it. Right. So for example, your item is user interface design, right? UI design is what generally the item we need to understand. For example, who is doing it? Ram. For example, Ram is the user interface designer. He is going to explain about this in the meeting itself. Notes here, we need to write down the discussion topic. What was the topic? User interface design. We are preparing. We are preparing using PHP as a main one, right? So this is what, right? This is what generally I have written, right? Right. At the same time, HTML code will be an added one to this UI design. Okay, this is what I have written. UI designing, right? So this is what the design and notes was written. Now, for example, whatever the action items we have taken, right? What action items we have taken? For example, action items is UI designing work assigned to the people of to Mr. to Miss Sita, right? So there is one more in user interface designer. At the same time, and also for Mr. Giri, who is a database designer, right? So who is a database designer, right? So maybe database designer work is required. Okay, action items and all. Like what decisions we have taken. This work has to be completed by 12th February at maximum. Right, this is what we have written, right? So this is what today's meeting was. Okay, today's meeting was that. Clicking on publish. Right, so clicking on publish. Your page has been published, right? So this date. Today we have conducted a meeting. Now, of course, here is the meeting notes. For example, this meeting notes is required here. Go back to the backlog. Take that particular user story, right? This user story. For example, if you want to link this, link Confluence page. Ours is healthcare integrated practice management. Meeting notes link. So this meeting notes is what the reference document required for this particular user story. So this here you can see either if you want to link an issue, another issue which is something related and relevant to that, you can link the issue, or else we can use link Confluence page, which will be used here accordingly. At the same time, add web link means for example, any URL internet link if you want to add, that also added to that existing ones, right? This is how generally this is being used for. Next here, if you want to add any kind of apps and all everything, any external apps to be added to the existing ones, that external apps can also be added to the existing ones. That is, anyway, that is quite common, right? So that is nothing much important here to write with. Now, what else we can write is here, you can write down the description. So what is this description is? Description means I'll tell you, especially whenever you are writing a user story, for example, you are a developer, okay, or a user interface designer. I have given this user story to you. As a system user, I want you to create an account so that I can log in accordingly, right? So this is what the user story I have given. Yeah. Right. So this is what the user story I have given. But if I have given this to you as a developer or a user interface designer, do you feel this is sufficient to you to develop that? May or may not, because there is some confusion was mentioned in it. What was the confusion? I haven't mentioned anything called how, right? So how it should looks like, right? What that for that, what is that I'm doing? I'm giving some attachments to you, right? So there are some attachments was given. But still, for a testing person, for example, you are a tester, how this document looks like and all, which you are not aware of. What is that you have to do? You need to write down the description. This description, this is what generally we call it as acceptance criteria. What is acceptance criteria? Acceptance criteria means how to accept that, right? How to accept this is what acceptance criteria means. For every user story, there must be some acceptance criteria, means how to make this user story successful in reference to the implementation is called acceptance criteria. So how do we write acceptance criteria for this? Write acceptance criteria as follows. There must be two fields for username and password. Okay. Submit and cancel buttons. There should be a provision to retrieve the password if someone forgot. At the same time, need to have an option for new registration. Okay, this is what generally the acceptance criteria which is written here, right? So acceptance criteria. So for every user story, please do remember there must be an acceptance criteria which is required. So without acceptance criteria, how come testing person will know? For example, you are a user interface designer or someone, because of this screenshot or the attachment I have given you, you could understand. But how can the testing person will understand this? If a testing person wants to test the functionalities, they have to understand well in advance. So for that, what is that we have to do? You have to write acceptance criteria. So I'm not writing for all the user stories because it is unnecessary, even as far as my understanding. Because how to write user story is what you need to learn, right? So that's the reason why I have written as a sample, right? So user story, you have to write user story acceptance criteria like this in the description column. After that, you can click on save, right? So that this acceptance criteria will be shared. Okay, saved. Next, attachments I have shown you. If you want to add any kind of attachments and all everything, you can add the attachments accordingly. Now tasks and all everything I have explained. Confluence page I have explained you. At the same time, next, to whom are we going to assign this? This here you need to mention the person, right? To whom are we assigning this is what we have to mention here, and to whom this is to be reported. Okay, assigned person is different, reported person is different. To whom are we assigning and all everything we have to mention here. If it is not been assigned and all, you can click on unassigned. At the same time here, to whom this is to be reported with. This is to be reported with Raz Elmer, who is a product manager. This has to be reported. Now label, we have to mention the label, right? So label is for easy identification. For example, creating an account for login, right? I'm just creating an account for, I'm creating something like called a new label. Okay, this is what I'm just creating. This is for easy identification purposes. Okay. Right. Next, right. Now story points. Story points we have already given, right? So which link is this required to? For example, which epic link is this user story belongs to? This was mentioned here as well. Next, priority. What kind of priority is this? For example, this is a high priority. Okay, so I have mentioned it is a high priority. And now here, this is what generally configuration is. So this configuration I'm going to explain in the next video. Okay, this is how generally these informations has to be updated. In this configuration, what is that we have to do is that if you want to add any kind of fields to the existing user story and all, we can add all that stuff. This I'm going to explain in the next video. Okay, this is how generally, what is that today we have learned is we have written the user stories, user story, user story that this one was given, right? Story points was given, followed by this, how to connect this confluence, followed by these attachments, at the same time acceptance criteria, as is this what we have learned. So how to do this configuration and all, how to add, edit or something like for this particular fields that I'm going to explain in the next video. See you then.